Well, I know who I'm going to vote for president.
That's great. How about everyone else?
Don't know much about them. Probably will leave them blank or pick random people.
Don't do that. Vote the ticket. Down ballot.
Why? What does it matter?
Start a wave. Wash out 2020 and start with a fresh 2021.
ShOUT 2020? Sounds good to me. I'll vote down ballot.
Yeah, use your power. I'll use mine when I turn 18. Vote the ticket. Vote down ballot.
Go down the ballot, they won't stop. Unless we stop, go down the ballot. They play the top against the middle, against the bottom. Go down the ballot, the whole ticket, vote the ticket. Straight down the ballot, go down the ballot. From the Appalachian Mountains to the valley out in Cali, vote the ticket, go down the ballot. The whole ticket, vote the ticket, vote the ticket, go down the ballot. The entire ticket. Voters, oh, down ballot voting to have in this situation. The truths in our choices, the president be old and Caucasian, but you have a call coming this fall, down ballot voting. For whom the bells toll, it's time to take your butt to the polls. And don't you dare waste time. If you do, you're saying this message just fine. And wear your mask. Be safe, complete the task. Down ballot voting. Red or blue, red or blue, Muslim or Jew, old white man, there are two. So what you gonna do?
Yeah.
Red or blue, red or blue, Muslim or Jew, old white man, there are two. What you gonna do? Down ballot voting. Down ballot. Choose down ballot voting. Down ballot voting. I'm comedian Preacher Moss. I'm not really a singer. He's unemployed. But I know one thing. Brought to you by two black men that should be working, but we're out of work because of COVID. It happens. Thank you. And don't forget to vote. Down ballot voting. November 3rd. See you November 3rd. Yeah. Hey everybody, Assalamu alaikum. Hope you're having a wonderful day. Make sure that you hit the subscribe button and the notify button so you know when you're getting new episodes. And we just want to grow this project. I thank you in advance. Without further ado, Let's get it rolling. The Shout Out Show.
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, everybody. Welcome to Mo Better Mondays. I am Preacher Master, host of the SOS, the Shout Out Show. And I just want to welcome everybody. I hope you had a great weekend. I want to stop and want to give a special shout out to the Jamie Foxx family. Jamie Foxx recently lost his little daughter, not his little daughter, I'm sorry, his little sister. Condolences, and we pray that Allah give you relief and comfort in that situation. That's number one. Number two is moving forward. I always like to give a thanks for anybody that's coming on the show for the first time. And the reality is you have so many things vying for your time that you come and spend a minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, half hour, however long you want to spend with us. I am appreciative. So that's number one. And if you're also on the show for the first time, click the subscribe button. Most people say click the like button too. Click the subscribe button. If we earn your respect, if we've earned your time and that time has been well spent, then click the like button. We appreciate you. As well, I want to give a shout out to all my Shout Out Show family, my Shout Out Show soldiers. Sister Reed's in the house. She's in the building. And Sister Sultan Consulting Producers in the building. As well as people who watch the show. Sometimes you don't get into the comment section. Sometimes you watch it later. I just want to say thank you, because that has been something, even my own estimation. I'm not giving thanks to people enough. So allow me to say that. Thank you. Now, today's show, brothers and sisters, is something that came to me while I was working on an assignment for one of my classes. So let me just give you what it is that we're going to be talking about today. Where are the Muslims in the 2020 elections? Now, let me frame this two ways. Number one, there's a classical way to frame it, and number two is, of course, the contemporary way to frame it, which is we are going to vote, or we are going to have an active part in the vote. I know that there are Muslim caucuses and watch parties and things like that, but I'm looking at tradition. I'm really going to engage this whole idea of just, what's the word I'm looking for? Profound impetus. Like, I feel like in some regards, we have been missing, and we're doing spot duty. So the Muslim community, God bless, it's not everybody, but we're doing spot duty. And I feel like in an election, it's important that our spiritual impetus, that our core creedal statements for being Muslim in the United States, we haven't necessarily acted upon them. We haven't necessarily put the ball in play whereby we are credible threats to this election if they don't get our vote or hear our opinion or somehow adapt part of our, I want to say, religious structure, ideology, core values. That it could be a tipping point for the election, and I don't feel that. And the reason I don't feel that is I've also looked at the push now to get people to discredit themselves by voting, but also discredit Joe Biden. So you have a number of scenarios going on. You had the issue with Ice Cube, meeting with the Trump administration, but he met with the Biden people too. That to the side. You have 50 Cent, who was saying things about Joe Biden. You have now Little Pump, who's not saying just little things about Biden, he's using profanity, things like that. And these are quote unquote rappers, entertainers who are, for lack of a better word, trying to use their platform to pull in black votes. Little Pump, I don't even know if he's black. I don't know. I don't follow rap that way. But for the Muslim, for the Christian, for religiously minded people, we find ourselves in a very perilous situation. The perilous situation that we find ourselves in is we now have government. There's always been separation of church and state. But we now have government that does not listen to any of the wisdom, any of the judicial understanding of life and legislation of life. They don't listen. It's totally to the side. In fact, it is beginning to look like for Muslims in America what a lot of Muslim-led countries look like in other countries. Your Pakistan, your Afghanistan, in the Middle East, outside of I guess Saudi Arabia, who does still maintain something of a Sharia type uh, foundation, but here in America, where we do have access to democracy, we do have access to equity models. Why haven't we produced something that we can introduce into the mainstream and people go, I like the way those people think. I like the way those people engage. I like the way those people question authority. And we've not had that in quite a long time. You know, going back to the Nation of Islam, honestly, we really haven't had that. And I believe that one of the reasons we haven't had that, it's been this long trending tradition of Islam in America, that Islam, for the purposes of white law, for the purposes of systemic racism, for the purposes of white privilege, Islam in America concedingly has continued to be, for lack of a better word, colorless. Islam in America has moved to be colorblind. And when I say colorblind, it means that colors are left out of Islam. In America, the experience of African Americans, Black people, is left out. Here in America, the experience of our brown brothers and sisters, Latinos, is left out. And it is a religion that frames itself for a lot of folks as being colorless. But it's not a colorless religion. If you hear what I'm saying, it's not a colorless religion. This is a religion that's diverse in cultures, diverse in religious understanding. But when it gets here to the United States, the same things that I'm talking about are the first things that are ignored as a part of being accepted, if you will. When I say being accepted by the mainstream as a religion. And I would say in some regards, we have not put our best foot forward in this election. We didn't put our best foot forward in the last election. And even with Obama, we didn't put our best foot forward. Because at some rudimentary level, I guess people are happy with this situation until they're just really, really not happy. Now, I'm saying happy and not happy, but there's a huge expanse of time between the two. We're talking about pillar to post. And that idea of being unhappy has to regurgitate. It has to be so repugnant that everybody feels the same way. Therefore, it is safe for us to feel that same way. Who are our leaders? Who have been our vocal points? Who have been our mouthpieces in this election? I've sat and I've thought about it. Who are our religious leaders that have stood up and go, that's not correct? Who have stood up and go, we can't go for that? You hear that silence? That's it. But let me even add on more. Even in the Christian tradition, who have been the people that have stood up to the government and said, God doesn't like that? As people of God, we have a grievance against you. As people of religion, people of faith, we have a grievance against you, and it hasn't happened. And I've begun to really, really look at this idea because it's permeating not just from politics, brothers and sisters. It's permeating into other aspects of life and living in terms of the Muslim community. I've seen it in the Christian community, but in the Muslim community, it's a little bit different because our theology is different in that people have access to religious texts, sacred texts. They have access to Hadith. You do not have to be a scholar to read the Quran. You do not have to be a scholar to collect Hadith and do interpretation of Hadith. You have a set tradition of law, of Quran, Sunnah, and fiqh, but somehow when we get here, it gets lost. It literally gets lost. And if we do our homework, if you really want to do the homework, in our tradition here in the United States, we've become butter soft in terms of upholding tenets of our religion. At the same time, we demonize other people. We demonize other factions because those factions have a clear understanding of how religion works for them. And what happens is we pair ourselves against those folks to say, look what we're doing. Look what they're doing. Look what we're doing. We're doing right. They're doing it wrong. But it's a superficial comparison because you can't even understand what the lifestyle and the life needs of those people are. There was a talk about Sharia. I was doing an assignment about Sharia. And the thing about Sharia that a lot of people already know is, Sharia, that's God's law. We're not questioning God's law. The government back in the day was tasked with the idea that you create laws and reforms, if you will, that maintain the good of the people, that serve the good of the people. And you have religious scholars that would interpret things that were not clearly spelled out in Quran and Sunnah. I got that. Here's my problem. What the hell happened to it? Where is it here in the United States? We should be protesting. We should be standing in front of the White House as a service not to the Muslim community, but as a service to the entirety of humankind. A crime has been committed repeatedly over and over and over again, not just against the Muslims, but against the children, but against the Latinos. Of course, there was a Muslim man, but against the poor, but against the sick. And we still yet to stand up and go, damn it, we're not going to handle it anymore. Damn it, this is wrong. I will stake my reputation on it that this is not what we're supposed to be doing. From a situation of prophetic understanding, religious understanding, but just basic common sense. And sadly, we've become way too much like some of the other religion factions here in the United States that bowed down years ago, that gave up years ago, that wanted nothing to do with government because government said we will have nothing to do with you, and in many regards, legislated it. Put it in a situation, put it in a bucket that said, if you are in this bucket, legally I can sink you. And therein lies the rub. Therein lies where we are today. There are people dying here in the United States. Dying here in the United States unnecessarily. I haven't heard a peep from the Catholic Church. I haven't heard a peep from my Baptist brothers and sisters. And damn it, I've rarely heard a peep from the Muslim community in a concerted way. We've talked about PPE. We talked about stimulus. We talked about that. But we really haven't sat down, and I mean sit down and make the case, a legal identity, if you will, that these things are legal. That this is murder at the highest degree. If you do nothing to assist the people, hear what I'm saying? If you do nothing to assist the people, knowingly, you have knowledge forbearing that you know that doing nothing will lead to death and chaos, therein you have committed a felony. You are an accessory to death. You are a murderer. And the people that go along with you are murderers. And somehow, I don't know why, we're not having this discussion. What we're having is an election. An election of people who are willingly let other people die. Sister Sultana Ali said, exactly. Even in the 10 Commandments, it points out this. But that theft that you're talking about, sister, that felony that you're talking about there, sister, that felony is life. You steal life from people. And here in the United States, people have gotten really, really comfortable with stealing life from other folks. Forget about property. Forget about money. We're talking about life, when people show up knowingly without a mask, knowingly don't socially distance, knowingly, and argue with you because you have on a mask, because you asked them to step back, then the world in and of itself is in anarchy. Anarchy. So as I begin to look at it, what are we really talking about in this election? Because Joe Biden doesn't understand this. He doesn't understand this. Because Donald Trump doesn't care. That the missing thing in all of this stuff about COVID, the missing thing in social justice is the fact, and I've said it before, is that people have lost their barometer on mercy. How can you have a government that has no idea about mercy? That we make it so pragmatic, and we make it so pragmatic because we want to separate it away from compassion, separate away from looking and interpreting things, which is the way of our religious tradition. Hear what I'm saying? You can have set laws in Quran. You can have set laws in Sunnah. But for the things that we don't know coming out of those two pieces of data, you have interpretation. You have scholars. One of the greatest atrocities for African American Muslims, and I'm going to say it here, and whether I get in trouble or not, it doesn't matter because it's the truth. One of the greatest atrocities for African American Muslims coming out of the first resurrection was people didn't immediately understand that the tradition we were coming from was not a tradition of Sharia in a contemporary context. But here's the rub. The people who came to us and told us about Sharia and told us about siyasa and told us about fiqh, they never told us that it wasn't working in their countries. If it was working in their countries, they would have stayed. It was not working in their countries. And so you sold a false bill of goods to people who were open and thirsty for Islam, open and thirsty for brotherhood. And therein, even now, we have problems because that type of Islam is a colorless Islam. It doesn't work. It only works under the guise of colonialism because we haven't seen that kind of Sharia all the way back to the part. We haven't seen that for a long time. And so we're introduced to this weird colonial aspect or colonial rendition of Sharia here in the United States, and it's left us gutless, toothless, butter soft, and damn near moist on a repeated basis. If I'm wrong, you could say I'm wrong. And I've said this before. If there was not a blueprint of Islam through the filter of African American life, Islam, as you know, wouldn't even be here. It would have no footing. Because I will say this about the NOI, and I'll even say this about the Ahmadiyya back in the day. The NOI took a little bit of religious knowledge, understanding that people, brothers and sisters, were not availing themselves, availing them to the Quran. Did you see what I'm saying? They weren't necessarily going, here's this information. They were going, here's this information through my perspective, which is in and of itself a violation. And then we turn around and we say, this is Islam. We turn around, we try and figure out why our children are leaving Islam or leaving the religion in mass droves, if you will. Because we can't explain to them the difference. We want them to do this, but this is the reality that they see. And even up to my point, to the subject of this particular talk, where are the Muslims in the 2020 elections, goes to the point, where are the Muslims, period? What policies are we affecting? If you're telling me we're affecting policies during the election, I don't want to hear it because you waited 4 years to do so. What policies are we affecting? Are we moving the groundwork, the foundations for the poor? Are we moving the groundwork for those who are homeless? Are we moving the groundwork for education? Are we moving the groundwork for equity for women? Are we moving the groundwork for just dignity in life and dignity in death? Are we doing that? Because if we're not doing it, and many times we're not doing it, it tells you where we are in elections. Now, I'll tell you where the Muslims are in the 2020 elections. For the most part, we are irrelevant. Because we haven't taken this tradition and led on this tradition. We haven't, and I will say this, and I'll say it twice. The scope of the matter is leading on that tradition separates you away from everybody else. Everybody else. You know, here in America, we want to be liked by everybody. We want people to respect our religion, but they don't really understand how we practice it because we don't necessarily practice it. And because of that, you know, it becomes an even bigger situation. And let me clear this up. It becomes an even bigger situation because folks have expectations of us, and we're not even putting out our expectations. I get it. I get dawah. Yes, I get dawah. But here's the rule, brothers and sisters. In America, dawah don't get it all. Dawah doesn't get it all. You know what gets it? Action. People have to see you in action. People have to feel you in action. People have to say, when this thing went down, and I archived it, it was that brother, it was brother Rashid, it was sister Hamida, it was brother Suleiman, it was sister Hanifa, it was these people that stepped into the fray. And on the political scene, what did we do for a number of years? We heard text about don't be involved in their elections, which is foolish in some regards because elections frame life in the United States. And anything that has to do with framing life outside of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you need to be engaged in. You need to have a full awareness of what's being said, how laws are being executed. We've probably spent, brothers and sisters, we're probably 20 to 25 years behind as a Muslim community in the political process. When Obama was in office, people got really, really happy that they could go to an iftar with the president. Not understanding that you weren't officially or realistically supporting that president. Where were the Muslims that stood up for Obamacare? I don't know. Where were the Muslims that stood up when he fought the tax increases, when he fought, and even when he went to war? Where were the Muslims that stood up and said, hey, listen, Obama, about Iraq, about Afghanistan, about our brothers and sisters in Iraq, about our brothers and sisters in Iran, we need to talk to you. You need to be fully aware of what our tradition is. And we haven't done that. Oh, here it comes. Where are the students of Imam Warfdi Muhammad? I'm writing 3 books for you, introducing you to Imam. Yes, yes. Especially our community. Especially our community. Because we are a community that is, I want to say, intimately understanding and engaged with what American democracy is, what American justice is. We survive in spite of American justice. The NOI survived in spite of American justice, in spite of American oppression. And we understand that as we can be the best Muslims in the world, but here in the United States, it won't get you fully recognized as being a citizen. We could be the greatest Muslims, and we're talking about scholars from West Africa, but here in the United States, when did you get the vote? When did they recognize you as a full citizen and allow you to vote? Think about that. And while people jump on these bandwagons about these 2 presidents, 2 debates. Nobody said Allah knows best. Allah knows best, but I'm blessed to go out here and do. I understand what's important for the good of the people. Nobody. I got a plan. But what's the good of the people? Can you tell me what that is? And when that question gets asked, people don't really have an answer. People don't have an answer. They've got politics, don't have an answer. So my question is, as we begin to wrap up a little bit here, what are you going to do? I know you're going to vote. I have pledged this show to just talk about down ballot voting. And when I say down ballot voting, I let people know that I'm talking about you have to vote in your local elections. You do, I do. I just watched something on YouTube about a bodybuilder that got out of prison. He's doing good stuff now, alhamdulillah. But he talked about his recidivism, about how he got out of prison, that he had addictions that he was still dealing with. One of his addictions was money. And he said, I would do anything for money. Anything for money. He said he would strip, he would sell dope, he would pimp, he would sell drugs, he would rob, anything for money. And I'm sitting there brokenhearted. But I'm sure in prison, there were some brothers who could have spoke to him about that. But we're not active as we should be. And now here's a brother that steps out. And thank goodness he's still trying to help you because he found people that didn't give up on him. We are the community that does not give up on those who suffer, those who are downtrodden, those who are poor, those who are oppressed. We should have our own party, if you will. What is it? How many Muslims are here? In the United States, doesn't matter. We should all hold our vote to the last moment and demand that humankind, that our brothers and sisters who look like us, who pray like us, who don't look like us, who don't pray like us, who literally we don't know. We just know that if it's oppression, they deserve compassion and mercy. We should be talking about those people because those people don't have a voice. You don't know their faces. You don't know their stories. When's the last time we all got in the car and just drove through a neighborhood and looked at the condition of the neighborhood? You know, I know several masjids around the area where they take food out into the neighborhood. And let me say this. It's not orchestrated food drives. They take food out in the neighborhood, stop the truck, open up the truck, and start passing out food. Unannounced, no press release, no marketing. And the killer part is people in those neighborhoods are so thirsty that they just come out. They need food. They tell, hey, they got food out here. And I've seen it. The Muslims over here, they got food. And I've seen it before. And what is amazing to me, and let me give a shout out real quick to my mom and Miss Eleanor. Hey, how y'all doing? I think you guys I sent you both links, so I apologize. We went to the wrong spot. And let me give another shout out to Sister Sultana. She said Muslim women flood the congressional building to establish Obamacare. Members of the congressional staff were shocked to see us. Came from 45 states. I love it, Sister Sultana. But where were the men? Was it 45 men that was there? Well, you let me know. Because even that, I'm sad to say, that story is not out. Because that story is the one that's supposed to inspire us. Inspire us. That's our tradition. So I'm going to leave here because, I don't like to go over too much. And I appreciate your patience with me on this subject matter. But I'm going to ask, and I want you to ask often, up until November the 3rd, where are the Muslims? Where are the Muslims? Where's the Muslim with the big opinion that can change how people vote? Muhammad Ali passed several years ago. And I remember the sadness that people had because Muhammad Ali stood for everybody. Everybody loved Muhammad Ali. But we haven't produced anybody since then. Not even close. And it's not even our job to produce another Muhammad Ali. Because Muhammad Ali tell you there's no other Muhammad Ali. He says, but there's a word, there's a spirit, there's a tradition. And all he did through his life was exhibit the tradition. So Sister Lasana said there was no men, only sisters, 45 sisters. That's right, men are sleeping. I've been saying this about Muslim men in this community for a while. Don't take it wrong. Some of y'all are butter soft. You're moist. You know, when it's time to feed the hungry, you want to give me hadith about feeding the hungry. No, I need food. They need food. That's exactly what I'm talking about. So I'm going to rock out. You guys have been tremendous. Tuesday will probably be a lighter show. I hope you guys don't mind. But I really wanted to address this. You know, because right now everybody's looking at all these commercials on TV and did Biden make a gaffe, did Trump lie again, and meanwhile, the moral fabric of our country goes down the toilet in a hurry because none of that is tied to, literally, none of it is tied to understanding religious tradition. And I don't mean, being a religious zealot or no. There was religious tradition that led to everybody understanding that you have pieces of understanding, mercy, and compassion. That your neighbor, in fact, shout out to my brother Terrence Brown, that your neighbor, if your neighbor wasn't doing well, it was your duty to go check on your neighbor or your neighbor's child. And that sense of community is something that's moved away because we don't have the fiber of a religious context, Islamic context, a Christian context. You know, all that Abraham face right now in the United States, we should all be ashamed. We would let a shyster show us in his own words. He said that he's God. And we let him say it. And the people who normally would have been, could you imagine if Obama said, you know what, I'm God? I'm the chosen one? You know how many people would have lost their mind? Not that he said it, but a black man said it. And some people go, what are you saying, preach? Well, last time a black man said that, it was the Nation of Islam. Call it what it is. But when he said it, a lot of brothers went with him. And that's why people like myself are here today. So I'm going to leave on that note. And I'm going to ask everybody, you know, despite what's going on with the elections, look at what's going on in your community. Ask your neighbors questions outside of election questions. How are you? How's your family? How's your mother? Are you hungry? Are you thirsty? How's your job? So these are the things that should be talked about in a specific election, but they are not. So I'm going to shout out all my brothers and sisters, all my Muslim brothers. You know, you need to step up. You're soft in the game, as Corey Holcomb would say. Y'all kind of moist. So I'm out. Everybody have a very blessed Monday, or what's left of Monday, and I'll see you tomorrow. If it's Allah's will. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Take care, everybody.
Hey everybody, this is your brother Preacher Moss. Listen, I hope that you enjoyed your Shout Out Show experience. We'll be back with the next show, the next Shout Out Show. Simple ask before you go, please help your brother out. Click that subscribe button, click that notify button, and I'll see you again on this side of the microphone. You probably wonder what that smell is. That's me. I smell good. And the reason I smell good is because I use oils from Tarifa Tar. So I'm not saying you can't smell good. I'm not even saying you stink. I'm saying you have the opportunity to smell exquisite. Check out tarifatar.com for some of the best oils and scents in town.